Well, Happy New Year. I guess I shouldn't say that considering it's February 18th, but this is the first chance all of us with the Conspiracy Keepers have been able to finally get back together after our New Year's Eve show. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to have us all back together again. This is very cool. A lot of things have happened since we last talked.
Yeah, the fat lady sang. That's what happened, and I lost more money.
Get your dollars out, gentlemen. $4 each.
$4 to Backlash LaRue from Scooter McGee. He's POTUS 45 is no longer.
Yeah. And I must admit, when I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong. In the last election, I was thinking that they were going to do everything they could to put Trump back in power. They were going to make everybody mad on the left, and we're going to have riots. We're going to have all that kind of stuff. It looked like that's what they're going to do. But Backlash says not so fast. Maybe they want to make the Trump supporters mad. Maybe they're going to go in a different direction. And you know what? They did. And I did not see it coming.
Got to tell you guys, it's a proud moment for me. I just had Bobo throw feces at the dartboard, and that's what came out. So worked out well.
And in the interim, I do want to say a couple things very seriously. We lost Larry King. And Joe and Backlash off mic last year, 2 years ago. Whatever year the World Series went 18 innings or whatever that was. Mm-hmm. You guys know about that conversation. And I never thought in a million years that I would outlive Larry King, and Larry King was old when I got in the business. But secondly, I'm sure I'll take a lot of crap for this. I was sitting in my office last night at the old radio station because I'm in the process of moving. And I got very, very emotional. I knew all day long, of course, Rush Limbaugh had passed away. But a moment of mourning came over and I was shedding tears, but for not the reasons listeners would think. The sheer volume of vitriolic bile coming out from the left that was celebrating the death of Rush. Remove Rush. Anyone celebrating the death of another human being, there's something seriously wrong with our nation and our morals and our values. And I thought about it sitting there staring at, you got these awards, and there's pictures, there's radio props and all that crap. And I'm like, you know what? At the end of the day, Rush Limbaugh was probably the most opinionated broadcaster in history. At a time when it was allowed, Reagan deregulates radio. Rush Limbaugh appears on the scene and blows up much like a Morton Downey Jr. And over the years, 40 plus years of broadcast excellence, you're going to say things and you're going to be wrong. And at the end of the day, Rush would at least go on the microphone and say he was wrong. He was sorry. Here's what I thought. Here's why I changed my mind. Let's keep going. And for those same 40 years, the left screamed, we need the fairness doctrine. If you can talk for an hour, we get to talk for an hour. Yeah, but you don't get to talk about emotion and feeling. Talk facts. And the closest they ever got to trying to defeat Rush Limbaugh, Joe backed me up on this, Air America. Mm-hmm. When they brought in the comedians like Janine Garofalo and Al Franken to try and topple Rush Limbaugh. That was their goal. That was their mission statement. That's why they went on the air. It doesn't seem as if the left has a base of emotion out of the broadcaster with facts, even though they may be as they see them, to stand their ground. We have a White House press secretary who can't circle back enough. we have an administration that is being led by the labor unions, teachers unions. Teachers unions are driving the Center for Disease Control right now, not the president, not the Surgeon General, certainly not the CDC and WHO, because they haven't been right this whole time.
Yeah.
And now getting ready for the anniversary of COVID. Change that story, Joe. Guess what we need?
Right.
We need a 9/11 type commission to go into white supremacist hate speech from Trump supporters so that we can keep the red or the orange boogeyman on the news every night through the midterms. Because that's the only thing a 9/11 type commission about January 6th is going to do. Their boogeyman is gone. He's playing golf in Florida. He's more popular than ever. And the left is scared out of their minds.
Well, here's the deal. I want to add something to that. And what you said about celebrating the death of somebody is deplorable. I am not condoning that. I think that's horrible. But those are the fringe that are doing that. Most people aren't going to be doing that. There are some that are, and that's terrible. But I think it's also important for us to see things from another perspective as to why people didn't like Rush Limbaugh, especially minorities. Limbaugh said a lot of bigoted things on the air. Now, to be fair to him, it's about ratings, and he knows that. He says a lot of things he doesn't believe, but he said a lot of things that were flat out bigoted, and that's why a lot of people didn't like him. Not because he misstated the facts. He was going to get a job on Monday Night Football. And because he was such a bigot, they fired him. He made a statement, you know what? The reason why the press doesn't criticize Donovan McNabb is because they're afraid to be vilified for criticizing a black man. On the air. You got to be kidding me. Only somebody an idiot would say something like that on national TV. And that was the day they said, Rush, get out of here. You're not going to be on Monday Night Football anymore. That's why a lot of people don't like him, because he did that a lot. Now, once again, do not celebrate his death, but there is a reason, if you look at it from another perspective, as to why minorities did not like this man, and they had a reason for it. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Then take it back 20 years before that, approximately 18 years before that, Jimmy the Greek.
Absolutely. Same situation.
But Joe, you know I love you. No, all right. I'm gonna preface that with everybody goes, okay. Yeah, this is where he's gonna say something stupid, probably.
Nope. Go for it. That's why we're here.
I respect what you said about Rush and the comments about Donovan McNabb and the Monday Night Football and all of that. Whether I agree with them or not is immaterial to what I was going to point out, in that doesn't he still have the right to say it? Now, argumentatively, the companies, they have a right to say that's your opinion and we choose not to do business with people like that. But this screaming now of a cancel culture where not only do we not want to work with you, we're going to make sure that you can't work for anybody. We're not going to let you talk on the internet. We're not going to let you send emails or messages. We're not going to accept your phone calls. And as far as we're concerned, you can go lay down and die. That's not what America and the First Amendment and free speech is about.
Absolutely.
The ultimate, and at the end of the day, the ultimate about free speech and the symbolism of flag burning or Nazis in Skokie, Illinois. I would never burn an American flag. I respect your right, but equally my right to do so. I have the right to burn the American flag. Would never in a million years occur to me to do something. To affect what purpose? None. And the American flag symbolism right now in the NBA and Mark Cuban and the national anthem. Joe, you have to admit, the left got tired. They didn't want the national anthem played at these games. So they created a non-issue with Colin Kaepernick in the kneeling, which was for something else, remember, when it started. So
It was always about something else.
it is. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day now, forcing the national anthem to be played so they can continue to yell and scream. Furthering the divide. Children are not racist. You put 1,000 kids of every color and ethnicity out on a playground, and guess what they want to do? They want to play with each other. It is only until they get into the school system with the teachers and the educators and the administrators and the faculty and the presence and the now you see race. And
I
now
would say also the parents.
and now they are weaponizing race by forcing me to identify Joe as black and making sure that I pussyfoot around anything I'm going to say around him because I don't want to offend his precious wings. I love you, Joe.
Oh, and by the way, I agree with everything you said. I don't disagree with that. But what I'm saying is, if you're going to get on national TV and say something racist about a group of people and they don't like it, and it's about ratings and they're going to tune out, that's the consequences you're going to have to face. But say whatever you want. But I'm just saying, you know what? You can't go up there and say whatever you want to about American Indians, Native Americans. You can't go up there and say something like that about Asians. You have the right to do it. I'll defend your right to say it. But I tell you what, if a group of people that are part of our audience are going to dislike you for it, you got to go. That's capital. That's the way it works.
Well, I agree with the middle point. You have the right to say it. I disagree. But the whole pick up your toys and create segregation. And then now here's a word that's really going to get us flagged. Ghettos. If you can't be in the system, you're in a ghetto.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. But anyway, just getting back to our regular point, I think we agree. We're just saying the same thing a different way. I'm not against Rush Limbaugh's right to say whatever he wants to say, but I'm just saying, if you look at some people from another side, look at it from their perspective and understand why they don't like him. And I am not condoning them celebrating his death, but what I'm saying is, Rush Limbaugh was not a hero of American culture. He was very divisive in himself and the things that he said. And by the way, we're not supposed to like division. We don't want division. He caused a lot of division himself. He was the cause of it.
You know, back to when Rush appeared in the mid 80s across the United States and across the Great Divide, I will bring up from my perspective, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and KSTP radio. On the AM side back then, it was 1500 News Talk, and the FM side, of course, where our illustrious, one of our great friends, Greg Thunder, was an air talent. But at 1500 KSTP in the 80s, Rush Limbaugh aired live every day. And then they replayed him at night. Same 3 hours. So for a sales department perspective and a programming director's perspective and an HR existed in the 80s, but it was a lot different back then. But this is huge. 25% of our daily programming we don't have to deal with. Which exponentially coming out of deregulation allowed these radio stations to just, you want to talk about the Federal Reserve printing money. Radio stations were printing money that fast.
Right.
Am I right, Joe, or am I lying?
Absolutely. You are absolutely correct.
Now, flip that to where we are now. As we're talking, all I got to do is switch this out, put the lavalier on, plug this microphone in, and you're never going to know where I am.
Right.
The industry is no longer bringing out talent on terrestrial radio. I'm going to say this. The industry is bringing out nothing but a bunch of bottom feeders who are voice tracking 10 different cities, cutting out 9 other jobs for 1/10 the pay. The radio stations are still making record profits during COVID. Don't let them fool you. Oh, we're having a drive to raise money for awareness for what a scam. What a scam. Meanwhile, COVID update, as we were talking off air and you saw how upset I got. Well, there is no new, we are in the new normal now. And I hate to say this, COVID is not going away in 2021. No. Neither are the lockdowns. Neither are the masks. Neither are the Karens. Neither are the teachers' unions. And neither is the crime rate that is now soaring, which Joe Biden is using as the excuse to implement massive gun control.
Gotcha.
Chaos
okay.
And create the solution and force it down their throats.
Agreed. But, and that's a different topic. And I want to go to your point on that in a minute. I want to read you some stuff. We're talking about Rush Limbaugh and the divisive things that he said. I want to read you some things that he said, some quotes from him directly. And I want you to, some of our audience to see if, okay, is this worth firing the guy over? Holocaust. 60 million Indians, only 4 million left. They all have casinos. What's to complain about? That's a quote by Rush Limbaugh.
Well, I'd want to hear the lead up to it, and then immediately after.
I know that's what. Yeah, I know that's yeah.
But was it satirical?
I hear you.
Did you mean that?
Would the American Indians care? I mean, that's really. I mean, if any race of people, if any race of people should not have guilt about slavery, it's Caucasians. He's kind of got a point there. I understand where he's going, but that's going to ruffle some feathers.
Hey, okay.
Feminism was established so as to allow unattractive women easier access to mainstream of society. Okay.
Okay. Remember, isn't it Rush Limbaugh? Did not Rush Limbaugh coin the phrase feminazi?
Yeah, I think you're right. Right.
Again, as a performer and a broadcaster whose job it was in the 80s to push the envelope every day. That pushed the envelope.
Blacks are 12% of the population. Who the hell cares? Quote by Rush Limbaugh.
Did he really say that?
Let stupid and unskilled Mexicans do that work. He said that tongue in cheek. I will agree on that one. He was trying to be funny. Is that funny? Is that funny?
Well,
is that funny to anybody?
Here's where the left has no sense of humor, and the right, sadly, has very little sense of humor.
The thing is, I'm just trying to point out why a lot of people don't like him. And if we look at it from another person's perspective, why this man is not a hero, is this man is not somebody that we want in broadcasting. This is not somebody that we want to listen to.
But he wasn't.
I'm not talking about me. This is not me saying this. I'm saying there's a group of people that's their sentiment, and you have to understand why they think that way. And it's not one or two people. It's a lot.
They're making it sound like that group of people is the majority of the planet, and it's not. It's a very small minority that is being focused on with a magnifying glass to magnify their comments to make it sound as if it's mainstream.
Well, but once again, you're leaving out the people that are doing this. It's all, I shouldn't say all, most 90% African Americans feel this way about Rush Limbaugh. And you're right. African Americans are a small minority of the mainstream, but they're important. They're that's kind of the logic that he used. That's just they're not part of the mainstream. They're not white. He even said it. It's only 12% of the population is black. Why do we care? Because they're not the mainstream. But nearly every African American, and pretty much all the ones that I know, feel this way about this man.
Explain Bo Snerdley, his longtime producer.
Again, what do you expect? He's his producer. He's one of the ones that are his to try to give it. I mean, it's the same concept as when Augusta National allowed one black lady to be, it's like, that doesn't solve the problem. It says, okay, problem solved. Crooked Stick Golf Course in Minnesota, we got one black member now. Okay, problem solved. No, the problem's not solved. That man is just a token and nothing else, and everybody knows it.
Joe, how come you're allowed to talk about a token and I'm not?
You are. This is our show. You can talk about whatever you want to.
I disagree. This would get yanked like that. I start talking like that.
Go ahead. Well, as a matter of fact, if you wanted to bring up a point to where the opposite is true with another race, I'll probably agree with you. I'll probably say, yeah, you're probably right about that.
Well, then okay. You said bring up another race. Well,
Sure.
Then in complete contradiction, because in the last 4 years, the media has all but disruptedly stopped speaking of Asians as any type of minority.
Right.
And I hate to bring Biden up, but Biden is now defending the atrocities that are going on in China. And if we even use the word that starts with a G and ends with an E, YouTube bans the product.
Right. I hear you. I hear you. But what I'm saying is, this is our show. We can talk about whatever we want to, and we can talk about things that you can't talk about in mainstream media. We can say things that they're not going to say on the regular TV, your channels, CNN, MSNBC, all the rest of them. And that's why we hope people will want to listen to us, because we can say things that people aren't going to talk about. We can say things that aren't popular, but they're true.
And hopefully do it without going either far left or far right.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't think did we go either way today? Did we go far left or right?
No, as a matter of fact, what we're doing is not even, like I say, the things that I said aren't necessarily my opinions. I'm speaking for a group of people that think this way, and I think we need to be aware and sensitive toward the way other people might think about things that weren't brought up like us.
Remind the listeners what it says on your birth certificate. I'm not
I know what you're saying. It's true. No, it's true. On my birth certificate, it says Negro, which is the term they used back then. They used either colored or Negro. They don't use any of them now. They use black or African American, which, by the way, African American is not an accurate term. African American means you have dual citizenship between Africa and America. If you were born in this country, if you're born in this country, you're an American. You're not an African American. But even though that's a politically correct term, it's not accurate. What's that?
You mean like Elon Musk?
Yeah, right. Right.
No, wait a minute.
That's the point. That's the point.
But Elon doesn't Elon still have his citizen? Doesn't Elon have dual?
As far as I know, he does. As far as I know. But what I'm saying is that would be the term. As a matter of fact, an African American, if you're from South Africa or whatever, that could just as easily apply to somebody who we would consider white, because it's a national thing. It's not a race thing. African American would not be a racial term. It'd be what country do you have citizenship in? So my point is, African American is a socially accepted term, but it's incorrect. It doesn't actually label a person of color, because we could be any race and be African American.
All right, then I'm going to ask a very ignorant question as devil's advocate. Have we made any movement in racial harmony or equality since the 1964 Civil Rights Act? If we went from, as you just said, colored people, I'm quoting what you just said, right, Joe? You said colored people.
Right.
Have we made any movement then in this movement? Have we made any progress in this movement if all we've gone from is colored people to persons of color?
Well, if you're talking about the term, well, that all depends on your perspective. Have we made any progress? Well, maybe on the surface, but the underlying racism is still there. Always has been. And I'll give you an example. I know that you saw the documentary that my father put together before he passed away. And he had talked about in the South, they had fountains for colored people. They had bathrooms for colored people. They even said it on the fountains, on the restaurants, colored only, whites only. Okay, now we don't have that anymore. But I can tell you what, the attitude is still there with a lot of people and a lot of people in high positions. So have we made progress? Well, yeah, we don't have that anymore, but I tell you what, it's more prevalent than we think it is.
Am I not allowed to bring up Irish and Irish need not apply?
Absolutely you can, because it's the same concept. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Then are we not in the exact same space now of conservatives need not apply? Republicans aren't welcome here. Are we not in that same spot with no movement, no growth?
Well, once again, it's maybe, maybe not. It's like I say, it depends on where you're coming from. It depends on your perspective of things. Just like I talked about just a second ago, the concept of, yeah, we don't have that anymore, but we have this. So is that progress? Who's to say? It depends on your perspective. A lot of people say, no, we're still in the same place. They just relabel it something else. Some people might say, well, yeah, I don't see that anymore. It doesn't seem so bad. You know, we will allow this certain race of people to purchase a house in this area, which we wouldn't allow them before. So that's progress. Well, yeah, from that perspective, maybe. It all depends on your perspective, which was kind of my original point, was we have to see things from somebody else's point of view. When we judge people, when we talk about people like Colin Kaepernick or whatever, we're looking at it from our background. This is what I think. You know, he's making fun of the military. He's making fun of the flag. No, he's not. He even said that wasn't the case. You have to look at it from somebody else's perspective, and that's what we can't do in America. We look at it from the way we were brought up, from our childhood, and therefore they need to think the same way. I was not brought up in poverty. I was not brought up like my dad, where he couldn't go places. He had to go to the back of the bus. He's got a way different perspective than I do. And we have to be able to see things from other people's eyes. And we're very bad about that in this country.
Oh, I can completely agree with you on that, Joe. I mean, it's also, I think the racism is generational, more so than anything else. It's like, you know what, that happened so many years ago. You know, I personally, I try and look at it from other people's perspective. And that's why I was quiet during most of this. Just know that, and I was also voice tracking 12 other states. You know, Boise, it's 43 degrees in part. So, you know, I'm gaining a lot of the back perspective just from both of you, and knowing what your family had to endure, especially your parents.
Right.
Knowing, you know, that out of the civil rights movement, you know, finally, what was it, 1974, that they finally allowed, quote unquote, allowed interracial marriages? I mean,
yeah, it was late. It was, yeah, it wasn't right. It wasn't as long. Right. It wasn't as long ago as people think now. For anybody who doesn't know, my parents are mixed heritage. My dad's black, my mom's white. So they went through a whole other different thing than I go through. People say, well, what did you go through? You know, I didn't go through a lot, because, and I hope I'm not offending anybody by saying this, because when people look at me, they think I might be Italian or East Indian or Hispanic or whatever. They don't think I'm black. So I get treated differently. I was brought up, I'm light skinned, my hair is straight. So people don't think of me like that. So they treat me differently. That's way different than what other people have gone through. My friends that are black, who people will know that they are. They get treated differently than I get treated. And a lot of people might not like to hear that, but it's true, because I've lived it. They've lived it. They go through a different life than I go through. And if you're black, to where people know that you're black, all my friends, literally all of them that are obviously black, have had problems with police stopping them, have had problems with it, all of them. Now, if you're not black, you'll say, oh, that's ridiculous. Well, then you're having an attitude, or, you know, you're talking back to them. It's like, no. Look at it from their perspective. You weren't there when they had these problems. You don't know what they've been through. They're telling me, yeah, we've had problems. my friends that are black, they will say, you know, the way I have to treat my kids, I have to tell them, this is how you deal with policemen. This is how you have to deal with them. My friends that are not black, they don't have that talk with their kids. You have to look from somebody else's perspective on things.
Well, Scooter and Joe, we're just about out of time on this segment, which was, I think, very, very spirited and very enlightening. And we'll be back on your perspectives of where the conspiracies that are wanting to be talked about, including January 6th and a few other things that I'm sure we can touch on. But we will be back with the next episode of the Conspiracy Keepers in just a few minutes. And before we go, Joe, tell them.
We're going to do another one?
Yeah, we're good. Time for one more.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, oh,
Where can they find us, guys?
yeah, Joe, do the plugs real quick then, but then, yeah, we'll reset and we'll do one more.
Okay. Well, you can go to the conspiracykeepers.com. And you can also go to theconspiracyzone.net, which has links to this show as well as a lot of other articles too. But those are the two places that you can find us. I'd rather you go to conspiracykeepers.com than YouTube, because we have problems with YouTube, and I transfer everything from YouTube to our site just in case those people at YouTube decide to start censoring us like they have everybody else.
Yeah, they're not looking at it from our perspective, I can tell you that.
Exactly.
All right,
Yes.
we will be back
You're
after
correct.
just a couple minutes. Gentlemen, we'll talk to you in just a few.
All right.
Sounds
Hail
good.
Lord.